Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy 2024, everyone. I'm so glad that we made it. We crossed over to 2024. It is something that not many people got a chance to do, and we are with the families of those that may have lost loved ones. Unfortunately, they could not see 2024. May the peace of God be with you and also be blessed and heal during the course of 2024. So, guys, like I said, that I was going to go back to normal programming after a very wonderful December that I experienced. If you guys don't know me that much, I am actually a loner. I am an introvert. I'm a person that lives in this shell and I don't see people. I'm always indoors. I'm a couch potato if I want to. Since I became a YouTuber, I've always been busy creating YouTube videos, which is something that brings me so much joy because it has connected me with yourselves. And when you guys came here, y'all yanked me out of my shell, especially the African Americans that are living here in South Africa. Stace, I'm talking about you, and Smooth. These are the people who would not let me be. They would be like, you better get out of there, and we are going here. You'll be shocked, you guys, the things that I have learned through them. I became a tourist in my own country because there are places I once knew were suburbs, and today they've got skyscrapers. I had no idea they even existed until my African American friends start living here. And then every weekend we'll go out. Me going out? Unheard of. Even my siblings, when they call or maybe they come over to my place and don't find me, the shock on their faces, like, is he kidnapped? Is he alright? What? That's what has been going on with my sister and my brother. Because they only know me when they come here to my place, they know they're gonna find me. There is no way they're not gonna find me. But these days, especially in December, I was on the streets, y'all. I was on the streets. For the first time in my life, I had a ball of a December. I know December in South Africa is crazy, but I didn't know that my African American brothers and sisters are this crazier in December. it was beautiful to watch, beautiful to experience, and I'm looking forward to more of these experiences when you guys come here to South Africa. Again, invite me. I will come, trust and believe me. Even if it means I welcome you at the airport, you come in, you do your own thing, I will do that too. I would also love to see you off because I love also seeing you guys off and having this separation anxiety that I feel sometimes. But my biggest blessing, I would say, is the African American brothers and sisters that are living here. And the way they are treating me with such kindness, such love, as though we were born by the same mother. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Am I an introvert still? I think I still am because I do have my days where I'm like, not today. No, not today. It is January right now. And in January, there's a lot going on because we're going back to school, we're going back to work. Everything is just new and we are just busy. We are running around like headless chickens trying to put together the year ahead. And sooner or later, things will go back to normal. Some people are still partying. I'm not quite sure if they got the memo that it's now 2024. It's just funny. So I continue to meet more African Americans that are coming to South Africa. Something beautiful. I love this. I love this. This is a beautiful move. You guys have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea how I feel about this. It's beautiful. I love it. And now I'm having great plans with some of y'all. Others, we are planning while you're living there in the US. It's what? It's insane. Hopefully, everything will come to fruition as time progresses, and I love that. So, the other thing that I came across, especially with African Americans that are coming here as tourists or to visit. I don't like to use the word tourists. Let's say visiting home. Some of the African American brothers and sisters that are visiting home, I'm talking South Africa, y'all, especially those of you that are using uh, tourism companies when you get to South Africa. Now, I want to make a disclaimer before I get into this, but it is something that is weighing heavy on my heart every time I see it or hear it. And I will tell you how I was hearing these things, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But, anyways, the disclaimer is I am not saying all tourism companies, whether it is owned by a white person or is owned by a black person or is owned by a foreign national or owned by a South African, I'm not saying they are all like that or that is what they do. But I'm coming across people when we sit and we are chopping it up in a restaurant after they have traveled, particularly Cape Town. Because what I keep hearing things that I don't think that is our history that are being uttered by my African American brothers and sisters that are visiting home. Now, what do I mean by this? So, you'll visit South Africa and you'll travel to Cape Town for leisure, or I think you guys call it leisure, and you hire tourism companies and that will take you to historical sites or take you to basically to show you off Cape Town, and then you're all excited and you are loving it, you are taking videos and absorbing all that history that's being told to you. And then we meet in Johannesburg, and then you share your experience in Cape Town. And part of the things that you are sharing about in Cape Town is the history. And then when I hear you share the history, in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? That's not South African history. Where did you get that? But at the same time, I'm very afraid to say it out loud like that. It's happening in my head. Like, and then I'll start thinking, because I did history. I'm a person who loves history, even though my channel is not based or research based. It's mostly observation and also my own opinion and feelings about what's going on in my head. So that is why nobody must come here and say, you need to do your research. No, my channel is not research based. It is authentic things that I experience and observe. Like this particular situation right here that I'm talking about. It's my observation when I'm listening to my African American brothers sharing their experiences in Cape Town. I have not heard anything about Johannesburg, because if they share about the history they learned in Johannesburg, it's always accurate. Always accurate. But in Cape Town, and then I started thinking, the company, then the first question basically I would ask is, the company you hired, what is his name? And who owns it? And so they will say the name. Me, I always go down the rabbit hole. I go and I check. And these companies, interestingly, are either not owned by a South African, or it is owned by a white South African, which is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you must also understand that our history in South Africa is not a pretty one. It is, if you're an African American, you know the Jim Crow law, and you know about apartheid and how these two, almost in the same WhatsApp group, if not in the same WhatsApp group. And I think our history does make some white South Africans uncomfortable to tell. And I'm thinking that if a South African white person owns a tourism company and they're uncomfortable about some truths of the things that happened to the majority population of this country, They then do what? They hire people and train them to tell tourists a curated, inaccurate history, watered down. And the second thing that I've come to notice is that these companies in Cape Town don't hire South Africans. I have spoken about this before, that in South Africa, South Africans are protected by the Labor Relations Act. It is near impossible to exploit a South African when they are employed. However, it is easy to exploit somebody that comes from elsewhere in Africa without proper papers. They employ them, they train them. Number one, they don't know anything about South African history. They are trained by their bosses to say, this is what you are going to tell the tourists when they ask about Robben Island. You are going to tell the tourists this case, this history, if you end up in Kyalami or Khayelitsha or in Stellenbosch or whatever the case might be. And then some of us who know the history, you're like, that's not accurate. And then you go down the rabbit hole again, you're like, oh, this is Ian Smith history, meaning Zimbabwean history. If it's not a Zimbabwean history, it is a Congolese history with Patrice Lumumba. Instead of talking about Nelson Mandela in an accurate historical South African history, you are taking a history of another country and another different struggle hero of the Congolese were against Belgium. And then you're making it a South. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I know it took hours for you to come to South Africa. But before it took hours to get here, you had to save up money to get to South Africa. And the last thing you want to hear is me telling you that you got the wrong end of the stick here. You were told the wrong history. That is not our history. Now, what makes this sort of trip more accurate for you when you are in Johannesburg is because most of the tourist guides in Johannesburg are either grandchildren or sons or daughters of the apartheid struggle heroes, or somebody in the family was involved in the fight against apartheid. Like in my family, for instance, if I had to become a tour guide in Durban, I will tell you the accurate Durban or KwaZulu-Natal history during apartheid, because my parents and my grandparents were part and parcel as the people that were fighting against apartheid. And then I can tell you that my life, my childhood was disrupted when my family was targets, meaning to be killed. And intelligence came to my mom and said, you better pack up you and your boys and get out of South Africa and go to Swaziland, when Swaziland used to be Swaziland. I still remember living, like, yanked out of my life and placed in a different country with a totally different, not a totally different language, because the Siswati language is cousin to Zulu. So I could hear some things, but some things I couldn't. And I had to learn how to speak Siswati because we were hiding in Swaziland for 4 years. So it is highly likely if you go to Durban and then you are told of our history in Durban that most of the tour guides are grandchildren, great-grandchildren, even sons and daughters of struggle heroes in Durban or in KwaZulu-Natal. So that is why in Soweto, if you are taken to Soweto and you are told about the Soweto history, it is most accurate when I hear it, you guys relay it back to me in conversation and probably even asking questions of clarity, because Soweto, after Swaziland, was another place we moved to where we lived for 2 years. And I remember seeing hippos, these apartheid police vehicles that will come to Soweto and basically throw tear gas at children playing soccer because they wanted to control the streets of Soweto. I know how it feels like to breathe in tear gas, the pain, the tears, the confusion. And when you try to run and the hippo is right behind you in full speed, I know that feeling, the fear. And the people that are telling that history in Soweto are the correct people. They are the sons or grandchildren or great-grandchildren of the people that fought against apartheid. Now, in Cape Town, you start thinking, oh, wait, it kind of like makes sense that in Cape Town, most of your tour guides are not South Africans, because many people back then in the apartheid days, black people, yes, they were there, but I would not say they were as much as in elsewhere. I don't know who the struggle heroes of the Western Cape. There are definitely colored people, as well as black people, and even some white people. I know Helen Ziller was one of the people who is, I think she's the leader of the DA or something like that, a political party here in South Africa, that fought against apartheid. But now my issue is, how do you, I'm not having an issue with you hiring foreign nationals as your tour guides. But where I'm having an issue is distorting our history. Because telling the real history, it does not sit well with you. Because maybe your forefathers were participating and part of the problem against the majority population back in the day. I am having an issue with that. And I thought, you know what? I would be doing an injustice to my brothers and sisters if I don't talk about this. So that if you are planning a trip to South Africa, please do your due diligence. Find out the tour company you are going to pay your hard-earned money for, who owns it, and the tour guides themselves. Because I feel like if the history is told, or the tour guide is a South African, they will have more sensitivity, passion, and an authentic history of the Western Cape, particularly Cape Town, versus somebody who was never born here, never grew up here, couldn't give a rat's toe about the history of this country. All they care about is that they have a job. And this is how they were trained to tell this history to the tourists. Again, I am not decampaigning anybody. I am not saying do not hire any of these companies. Hire them. But just understand that there's a chance that you are going to be told a distorted history. Versus if it is South African owned and the tour guides are South African themselves, how are you going to prove that? I don't know. I don't know. But it's imperative that when you hear something, look it up. Rather, look it up and say during the tour, but wait a minute, you are telling me one thing, but the history says something different. Expose them like that. It feels upsetting to me and really confusing at the same time. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm falsely accusing people here. Maybe people was hearing different things and they interpreted differently. But at the same time, I'm thinking, no, man. I have seen videos of African Americans that do YouTube when they come to South Africa and then they record the tour guide telling them things. And then as they tell them things, I'm like, Aibo, where? In South Africa? That's not our history. I would find myself saying those things out loud to myself. And then you hear the accent, because South Africans can tell a South African accent And we can also tell a non-South African accent. But I'm talking about an accent of our brothers and sisters that live on the continent. We can tell, we can differentiate, because South African accent is very distinct to us. You can tell a colored accent, you can tell an Afrikaner accent, you can tell a white English person's accent, you can tell a Zulu accent, you can also differentiate to a Xhosa, and etc. and so on. Every part of South Africa has its own accent when they speak English in South Africa. But when you are listening to a tour guide in a YouTube video of an African American who is recording the whole thing, and you're like, did I hear that correctly? And then I hear it physically when my brothers and sisters coming from Cape Town, they sit down in a restaurant and we are talking, and I'm asking how was the trip to Cape Town, and they are sharing these things as well as the history, and the history is not accurate. Please do your due diligence so that when you go home, you take home with you accurate history. The interesting thing was the last African Americans that I had a conversation with very recently, as recent as last week, I think it's Friday. One of them said, the history that I heard in Cape Town, I felt so disconnected with it. It didn't feel like what I had come to South Africa to experience, because many African Americans that come to South Africa, they come back and say, well, us and South Africans, we relate so well with each other because our history is similar. And then they go to Cape Town, they say, I disconnected. Something wasn't right. And I'm like, please do tell me what you were told. As they are talking, you're like, that's... Before Zimbabwe became Zimbabwe, it was called Rhodesia. And I'm like, you are telling me Rhodesian history here. And your tour guide is highly likely to be a Zimbabwean, not a South African. As a South African citizen, I feel like I'm listening to treason. But it's no fault of my African American brothers and sisters, because you don't know the history. You're here to hear it, experience it, and also observe and then compare between our history and your own. And you all say the same thing. We relate with each other because of the history, the Jim Crow laws, as well as apartheid laws. How they disenfranchise us as these people. Please do your due diligence, which as well kind of like also draws you a picture about the narrative that South Africans don't want to work. South Africans would not want to do this type of work. South Africans don't want to be waiters. And I said this before, prior to everything that is happening today, I, as a university student, I used to be a waiter. Many restaurants in South Africa, the restaurants were on our backs. We're the ones who built it as students. In the restaurant, you will find a white South African waiter, you will find an Indian South African waiter, and a black South African waiter, all doing waitering jobs. And we were making money. And they were giving us our tips. Now, when you come to this restaurant, that's another thing that I want to talk to you guys about. That the tips that you give your waiters, those tips are not going to your waiters. This is one of the reasons why restaurants don't hire South Africans, is because they can't steal those tips from South Africans. Because the South African will tell the restaurant manager or owner that this is my money. I'm the one who was serving, and the patrons of this restaurant enjoyed and appreciated my service, and as a result, they gave me a tip. But because they hire people that are not from South Africa, they take those tips from them. And then you walk away feeling good and thinking that my tip is going to change the life of the waiter, when in fact, that tip is going into the pocket of the restaurant owner. This is why they created the narrative that South Africans don't want to do these jobs. So that it's a justification for them to use South Africans as, how do we put this word, to lie on us so that you accept that lie and say, oh, South Africans don't want to do this job, so that is why you have this nationality doing this job here. That nationality that's doing the waitering job is being cheated out of their money, the tips that you give them. Cheated out. Daylight robbery. And on top of that, they do not earn enough money to pay rent, buy food, take themselves to work. They have to live in like sardines in a room so that they share the rent, so they are able to send some money back home and they are able to eat. Most of those guys do not have apartments of their own where they live by themselves, but from the tips that you give them, plus the salary that they earn. And then they turn around and say, South Africans don't want to do this job. We've been doing this job forever before all of this came up. Security job. They said we don't want to do those jobs. And yet, Zulu people were known to be securities in South Africa, simply because of the Zulu's mentality. A Zulu, when they are going to do something, they do it. So many companies hired only Zulus for security. But today, the same Zulus that used to do this work, they don't want to do it. I want to challenge you, whether you're living here in South Africa or you are going to visit South Africa, go to a South African that is unemployed and ask them, what job are you willing to do? And the answer is simple. Anything. Give me anything. I will do it. Now, does that sound like a lazy person who doesn't want to do a certain job? It makes sense, because if you go to Cape Town, it's not South Africans that are your tour guides, because South Africans don't want to do this sort of job. You'll be told. No, it's exploitation. And seemingly, it's not just exploitation, but also watering down our history. The authentic history. If you are going to teach a South African incorrect history, they're going to say, no, you are wrong. So tell somebody who has no clue about the South African history and then feed them your version that makes you feel comfortable, because they know nothing about South African history. They were not born here. They didn't experience apartheid. They know nothing about apartheid. Just like they will not know anything about slavery, the transatlantic slave trade. They will think that it's a made-up story. That's what we are faced with. So I challenge you to do your due diligence before traveling to South Africa, so that you don't find yourself being taught inaccurate history. Listen, use reputable travel agencies. The Real South Africa, I believe they have correct channels, correct tour guides, whether in Durban, Cape Town, or here in Johannesburg. I don't think they would put you in a situation where tomorrow you turn around and say, the Real South Africa sent me to the wrong people that taught me the wrong South African history. They are reputable and they've done their due diligence. No, before you come for me, because I did not fetch for you, I'm not paid or sponsored by the Real South Africa to say this. I am telling you what I have observed and what I've also heard. All these places and the people that they are assigned you to, they are the correct people that tell you the correct things about South Africa. So I would encourage you, do your due diligence and get to travel agencies and tour guide companies that are going to give you accuracy. So basically, that is what was on my mind, and I thought, let me help my brothers and sisters that are coming home to visit us. I want you, when you visit us, you walk away with a piece of our history. That's what I want. It must be accurate. Not only you had fun and had great time, but also you resonate and also marinate in the history that is part of you as well. So that is all that I wanted to say in this video. Again, I don't want to be misquoted out of context and thinking that I'm saying that tour guides in Cape Town are crooks. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is do your due diligence. Not all of them will tell you correct history. Not all of them. You will come across those that are chancing you. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please do not leave this video without smashing me the like button and also subscribing to the channel, because we got more great videos coming up in this 2024. I think I'm going to upload about twice a week, and yeah, I'm still going to go live. Yeah, I'm definitely going to go live on Saturday. Yeah, we definitely are going to go live on Saturdays, and then there'll be a video sometime during the course of the week. I appreciate you guys so much for your support. I see the channel is growing. I appreciate that. Goodbye.